Maverick 100.9 Aggie Lands Country Alternative. It's Corliss, and I am so excited to finally get to meet BJ Barham of American Aquarium. BJ, it is so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me on.
I am really excited. I know we've got a ton of new stuff to talk about and a ton of old stuff to talk about. So, of course, first on the list and why you're joining me is you've got a brand new single out to radio called All I Needed, which is going to be the first release off of a new album we'll be chatting about. That's very exciting for you guys, I assume.
Yeah. We recorded this record back in November. So we've kind of been in that weird purgatory where the record's been finished and we haven't been able to play anybody any new songs yet. So it finally feels great to be able to put a new single out into the world and let people hear what we've been working on.
Well, I mean, I know your last album came out in 2020, and I can imagine that was an awkward release, or did you see it almost flourish because everybody was at home actively consuming music?
The latter. We put it out in May of 2020, kind of right as the pandemic was really getting heated up. We found that more people were at home. They were listening to the entire record. They were buying physical copies of the record. It was our biggest release to date. Like, we've never had an album do as well as that album did as far as critical acclaim or just sheer sales. And so I consider us one of the lucky ones because I've heard so many horror stories about putting records out in the middle of the pandemic. And we put out 4 records between 2020 and now. So, we've seen an uptick in people buying records, actually listening to entire records, not just streaming singles, but actually listening to whole records while they're sitting around the house doing their work. And so, we saw a huge uptick during the pandemic.
That's typically how my husband and I consume music in the home. I work in technology 24/7. It's hard for me to turn off radio cordless and working cordless. So when we're in the home, we actually listen to nothing but vinyl.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think you're alone in that.
And that's a little bit of a tip for people out there. If you're wanting to kind of turn things off and consume organically, that's how we do it. And I'm really excited for the new single. I know everybody here has been anxiously waiting. So I think we're going to debut it for everybody for the first time on Maverick 100.9. This is American Aquarium and All I Needed. Due to copyright, Brian Broadcasting is not licensed to air this single for you in podcast form, but you can find it, download it, and stream it now. And as today's interview continues, we will talk about more American Aquarium music on the way. Maverick 100.9, you just heard it here first. All I Needed. That was the new single from American Aquarium. BJ is on with me now, and you and I were talking about consuming music, consuming records, which you do have a new one coming out June 10th. I'm going to let you say the title of it because I always mess up the title of your records.
Our new record's called Chickamacamico. Chickamacamico.
What does that mean?
It's actually a place. It's what North Hatteras Island here in North Carolina at the Outer Banks used to be called. It used to be called Chickamacamico. It's the Algonquin word for sinking sand. And it's what most of that northern coastline of Hatteras Island was called up until the 60s and 70s.
Oh, wow. You are such a man of the world. You are such a knowledgeable human. And even while we were talking about, music being played at home, I've always been an American Aquarium fan, but you really came to the forefront during the pandemic as well, putting your face out there and your heart out there. And I found myself just watching you and learning about you as a person. And I don't know if that made me love the music more or just you personally more. But I got to know how this brain works, BJ. I've got you here. I've got to know how your brain works because artistic almost seems like that's downplaying it.
Yeah. I'm lucky to have been afforded a lot of experiences in my lifetime, for good, for better or for worse. I've been able to travel a lot. I got a really great education, but I'm always curious. I'm still a kid at heart, and I'm constantly trying to learn, and I'm constantly trying to prove myself wrong. And I think that's part of growing up. I think that's part of continual growth, is not being happy with what you currently know, but pushing yourself to learn more. I'm trying to get as much information and experience and travel and relationships in during this short amount of time I have on this earth. And so it would be kind of dumb of me to sit back and think that I've seen everything at, I'm 37 now. So if I stopped learning at 37 and just continued through life thinking I knew everything, I don't see the fun in that. I like to challenge my beliefs. I like to go out into the real world and see if what I believe actually stacks up. And if it doesn't, altering my beliefs to match what I learned. I think that should be the goal of everybody. And during the pandemic, it gave me a lot of time for self-reflection and for introspection and for kind of, we're going to call it self-growth. And doing and learning more about me. I'm the kind of guy, my brain is working at 100 miles an hour at all times. And so during the pandemic, I was forced to kind of slow down and take more in and enjoy the things that I did have, which is my wife and my daughter and a home life and friends and family, and really appreciate that and slow down. And so, yeah, I'm back to 100-mile-an-hour brain now, and constantly touring and focusing on promoting a new record and constantly writing songs. But yeah, I think that's a glimpse into how my brain works. It's always pretty active, and it's always kind of a big sponge. It's trying to soak up as much information as possible just so I can kind of have it in my back pocket.
That's fascinating. I have a friend that is very similar to you. And at any point in my life when I feel like I'm on that stall, or if I think I'm a know-it-all, and we all go through those phases, especially in our 30s, like we've gotten over the young selves and we're growing into an older, more mature, but we're also deciding where our futures are going to lie. And I have this friend that always strikes that thought process in me and gives me that experience to grow more. And I think that's great. And so new tour coming this summer, this fall, new album coming out in June, all those things that you've had to sit and think on while you were slowing down. Would you say that has changed the music at all? Or do we have a different sound coming from American Aquarium?
It's a different record. It's definitely more somber. It matches the last 2 years. I don't know about everybody else, but personally, I went through a lot of loss. During the years. I lost my mom. I lost my grandma. I lost a lot of time. I lost a lot of experiences, like we were talking about earlier. And so this whole entire record kind of centers around loss. That's kind of the main theme that finds itself running kind of throughout the record. So it's a much more stripped down take. When people think of American Aquarium, they think of the loud rock and roll stuff. And this is more contemplative songwriter type stuff. And the band absolutely crushes it. They shine where they need to shine. But they don't have to do all the heavy lifting, which is nice as a songwriter for the words to be able to hold up the song just as much as a guitar solo. And so, yeah, record comes out June 10th. We're kicking off the entire tour at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee. That's the album release show. And then from there on, it's kind of wide open, pedal to the metal until the end of the year, promoting this new record.
Oh man, that's exciting. I always say the one thing that all humans have in common is birth and loss. And so It sounds like this album's going to be really relatable. And once again, it's something that maybe you consume alone in a somber place. And I'm really excited for that. And I've already put it like I do a yearly concert bucket list. And last year I was able to get through all of them that I wanted to. And I was really proud of myself for that. American Aquarium is number one on I have never seen American Aquarium. I got to get out and see them this year. It's going to happen, but everybody's going to have that opportunity. Please follow American Aquarium. A lot of tour dates on the way, a lot of new music. And BJ, it's just been phenomenal getting to know you a little bit more today. Thank you so much for joining us on Maverick.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.